Welcome, friend. Over the next few hours, you will be listening to a sequence of Buddhist stories told one after another, each touching a different aspect of human experience, yet all quietly connected beneath the surface. You don't need to understand each story right away, and there is no need to remember every detail. What matters more is allowing the stories to unfold in the order they are told, because they are not arranged randomly. Each one gently prepares the ground for the next, guiding the mind from familiar reflections into deeper awareness. If you listen to only one part, it may seem simple, but when heard as a whole, these stories form a continuous flow where each moment completes its role before giving space to what follows. So listen slowly, without rushing and without searching for conclusions. Let each story arrive in its own time and leave when it has been fully heard. If you are here now, allow yourself to stay with the entire journey. As you listen, there is nothing you need to do. You don't need to agree with what you hear, and you don't need to question it either. These stories are not meant to be analyzed or judged. They are simply meant to be listened to, allowing them to move through the mind at a natural pace. At times, a story may feel familiar. At other moments, it may feel distant or unclear. Both are perfectly fine. You don't need to force understanding. Whatever resonates will stay, and whatever doesn't can pass without effort. Try not to anticipate what comes next, and try not to hold on to what has already passed. Each story is complete on its own, yet part of a larger flow that reveals itself only when you continue listening. This is not about reaching a conclusion. It is about staying present with each moment as it unfolds, one story at a time. And when you are ready, we will begin with the first story. There was once a man who had studied the teachings for many years. He knew the words well, and he could explain them clearly. Whenever others spoke, he listened carefully, not to understand, but to prepare his reply. He believed that understanding meant having the correct answer, and that clarity came from proving his view to be right. Each conversation became an opportunity to defend what he already knew, and slowly, without noticing, his certainty began to harden. He did not see this as a problem. After all, he was sincere, disciplined, and deeply committed to the path. Yet beneath his dedication, something subtle was taking shape. Something that would only reveal itself when it was quietly questioned. Over time, the habit formed quietly. Whenever there was a discussion, he felt a subtle pull to speak. If someone expressed an idea that felt incomplete, he would gently correct it. If a word was used loosely, he would refine it. His tone was calm, his intention sincere. He believed clarity was a form of kindness. At first, people welcomed his guidance. They nodded, listened, and asked questions. But slowly, the conversations began to change. Others spoke less, choosing their words more carefully, or sometimes not speaking at all. He noticed the silence, but he did not question it. To him, silence simply meant agreement. He told himself that this was part of the path. After all, wasn't it important to protect the teachings from misunderstanding? Wasn't it better to speak clearly than to let confusion spread? Yet each time he corrected someone, something subtle tightened inside him. The conversation ended, but his mind remained alert, replaying what had been said, refining it further. Even when he was alone, the need to be precise stayed with him, as if the dialogue had never truly ended. Without realizing it, Listening had become preparation, and understanding had quietly shifted into something else. One day during a small gathering, a younger student shared a simple reflection. His words were hesitant, incomplete, yet sincere. Before the thought could fully settle, the man responded, adjusting the phrasing, clarifying the meaning, guiding it toward what he believed was more accurate. The room grew quiet. No one disagreed with him. There was no argument, no raised voices, no visible discomfort. Yet something had shifted. The younger student nodded politely but did not continue. Others looked down, waiting for the moment to pass. The man noticed none of this as a problem. He felt satisfied that confusion had been removed. The teaching, at least in his mind, was now expressed correctly. But as the gathering ended and people slowly dispersed, he felt a faint heaviness remain. It was not regret and not doubt. It was simply an unease that had no clear name. He replayed the exchange in his mind, wondering if he could have explained it more clearly, more precisely. Days passed and similar moments followed. Each time the same pattern appeared, a calm correction, a quiet room, and afterward a subtle weight that lingered longer than the conversation itself. Nothing was openly wrong, yet nothing felt fully at ease. Not long after he met with an older teacher he respected deeply. They sat together in quiet conversation, and the man began to explain his understanding with confidence and care. His words were structured, precise, and well considered. The teacher listened without interruption. When he finished, there was a long pause. Then the teacher asked a single question, spoken softly and without judgment. "When you speak like this," the teacher said, "what is your mind trying to protect?" The question did not challenge his knowledge. It did not suggest that he was wrong. Yet it stopped him completely. He searched for an answer, but none came. The clarity he usually relied on was suddenly absent. For the first time, he noticed the space where certainty normally stood. They sat in silence. The teacher did not explain further, and the man did not ask for guidance. Nothing more was said. Yet something had already shifted. As he left, the question stayed with him. It followed him through the day, not as a problem to be solved, but as a presence, quietly observing his thoughts. For the first time, he wondered whether his need to be right had been less about truth and more about something he had never questioned before. The need to be right often feels harmless. It can appear as dedication, as care, or even as responsibility. Wanting clarity seems reasonable. Wanting accuracy feels necessary. And yet beneath this surface, there is often something quieter at work. When the mind needs to be right, it is no longer fully listening. It is already preparing, already adjusting, already deciding what should be corrected. The words of others become incomplete shapes, waiting to be refined. In that moment, understanding is replaced by control. Being right offers a sense of safety. It gives structure. It keeps uncertainty at a distance. But this safety comes with a cost. The space where curiosity once lived begins to shrink and conversations slowly lose their warmth. The truth does not ask to be defended. It does not require urgency. When something is truly understood, it can remain gentle, even in silence. But when the mind feels threatened, it speaks quickly, not to share, but to protect. This is why being right can feel heavy even when nothing appears wrong. The weight does not come from the conversation itself. but from the effort of holding a position that must constantly be maintained. Noticing this is already enough. There is no need to force change and no need to reject the habit. Simply seeing how the desire to be right arises, how it tightens the body, how it narrows attention, allows a small space to open. In that space, listening can return. Not listening to respond and not listening to correct, but listening without direction. And when that happens, understanding no longer needs to arrive first. It can wait. It can unfold slowly without resistance. Sometimes the most honest response is not an answer, but the willingness to remain open. When the need to be right is finally seen, another habit quietly comes into view. Not the urge to correct, but the tendency to look outward, measuring oneself against others. Each morning, he joined the others and sat quietly in the same place. The routine was familiar, and nothing ever seemed out of order. He was not someone who argued, and he did not feel the need to prove himself right. In fact, he was often attentive and sincere in his practice. From the outside, nothing about him suggested restlessness. Yet as time passed, his attention slowly drifted outward. He began to notice how others progressed, how quickly they understood, how often they were acknowledged. When someone seemed to move ahead, he felt a subtle tightening. When someone struggled, there was a brief sense of relief. He told himself this was natural. After all, observing others could be a way to learn. But without realizing it, his awareness was no longer resting where he stood. It was constantly measuring quietly, checking where he was in relation to everyone else. At first, nothing felt out of place. He listened, observed, and continued his practice as he always had. Yet small moments began to catch his attention. When others spoke, he noticed how quickly their words were received. When questions were asked, he noticed whose voices were answered first, whose comments drew a quiet nod. These observations felt harmless. He told himself they were simply part of learning. Watching others, after all, could reveal what he had not yet seen. But gradually, his focus shifted. Instead of returning to his own breath, his own rhythm, his awareness lingered on others. He began to mark progress without intending to, who seemed more at ease, who appeared to advance more quickly, who struggled to keep up. Nothing about this felt dramatic. There was no envy, no frustration strong enough to name. Just a gentle pulling of attention away from where he stood. Without realizing it, his practice had gained a new reference point. It was no longer anchored only in his own experience, but quietly measured against those around him. Over time, the comparisons left a faint residue. When others seemed to progress, he found himself quietly questioning his own pace. When someone struggled, there was a momentary easing, followed by an uneasy awareness of it. These reactions were small and fleeting, yet they began to repeat. He noticed that his attention no longer settled as easily as before. Even in stillness, his mind wandered outward, replaying moments, measuring distance, tracing invisible lines between himself and others. The practice itself had not changed, but his relationship to it had. There was no clear dissatisfaction, no sharp frustration, just a constant sense of being slightly out of place, as if he were always a step behind or a step ahead, but never exactly where he was. Gradually, this restlessness seeped into moments beyond practice. He compared himself without intending to, in silence, in conversation, in reflection. The habit followed him quietly, persistent. Nothing in his life appeared wrong. Yet the ease he once felt was harder to find, and without realizing it, the effort to locate himself among others had begun to exhaust him. One day, without any particular event, he noticed how tired he felt. There had been no argument, no failure, no obvious reason. He had followed the same routine, listened to the same teachings, and moved through the day as he always had. Yet beneath it all, there was a quiet exhaustion he could not ignore. As he sat in stillness, he realized his attention had not rested on his own experience for a long time. It had been busy tracking positions, who seemed ahead, who appeared behind, where he might stand in comparison. Even when nothing was happening, the measuring continued. In that moment, he saw something clearly. He no longer knew where he was on his own path. He only knew where he thought he was in relation to others. The realization did not bring relief. It did not offer an answer, but it brought honesty. He saw that the constant outward glance had slowly pulled him away from his own rhythm. Not because he wanted more and not because he felt less, but because comparison had quietly replaced presence. He remained seated, doing nothing differently. Yet, for the first time in a while, he noticed how much effort it had taken just to keep checking. And in noticing that effort, something finally paused. Comparison rarely announces itself. It does not always appear as jealousy or dissatisfaction. More often, it arrives quietly disguised as awareness improvement or self-reflection. It feels reasonable to notice others, to observe progress, to measure where one stands. Nothing about it seems harmful at first, yet comparison slowly pulls attention away from direct experience. Instead of being with what is happening, the mind begins to look sideways. Each moment is no longer complete on its own, but evaluated in relation to something else. Presence becomes conditional. The exhaustion that follows does not come from falling behind or failing to keep up. It comes from constantly leaving one's own rhythm. When attention is divided this way, even stillness requires effort. The mind is never fully at rest because it is always checking. What makes comparison particularly subtle is that it does not feel like desire. It feels like orientation. But over time, orientation becomes fixation, and fixation replaces clarity. One no longer knows how they are doing, only how they compare. There is no need to force comparison away. The habit is deeply human and it arises naturally in shared spaces. But noticing it honestly changes its weight. When the act of measuring is seen, it begins to loosen. Each path unfolds at its own pace. When attention returns to where it actually is, effort softens. There is no longer a need to be ahead, behind, or aligned. There is only the step that is being taken now. This does not mean comparison will disappear. It may return quietly and often. But each time it is noticed, presence has a chance to come back. And when presence returns, the journey no longer needs to be checked against anyone else. It can simply continue, one moment at a time, without reference. When comparison becomes tiring, the mind begins to look for something else to hold on to. Not a measure, but a hope. The belief that something more will finally bring ease. After a while, the measuring eased. He no longer compared himself as often, and the constant checking began to soften. In its place, something gentler appeared, a quiet hope. The sense that if he continued, if he stayed patient, things would eventually settle. He did not ask for much, just a little clarity, a small sign that the effort was moving in the right direction. He told himself that hope was natural, even necessary. Without it, how could one continue? So he waited, he practiced, he watched for changes, subtle or clear. Each day carried a quiet expectation, not spoken aloud, but always present. Nothing felt forced, yet beneath the calm, his attention had shifted again, this time toward what had not yet arrived. At first, the hope remained light. He continued his practice without urgency, telling himself that results would come in their own time. Still, he began to notice how often his attention drifted toward what might change. A calmer mind, a clearer understanding, a sense that something would finally settle. These thoughts were not demanding. They felt reasonable, almost comforting. Hope gave direction to his effort, a quiet reassurance that patience would be rewarded. Yet slowly waiting became part of the practice. He listened not only to what was present, but also to what might follow. Each moment carried a subtle question. Is this it? Has something shifted? He did not realize when expectation replaced presence. The change was gradual, nearly invisible. Nothing felt tense. Nothing felt wrong. And yet his attention was no longer fully where he stood. It leaned gently forward toward an outcome that had not arrived, shaping each moment around what he hoped would come next. Over time, the waiting grew more noticeable. He began to check his experience more often, quietly assessing each moment. If the mind felt calmer, there was a brief sense of relief. If it did not, a faint disappointment followed. Nothing dramatic, just a small tightening that passed quickly, then returned again. Hope, once gentle, started to shape his attention. Each day carried an unspoken expectation that something should feel different. When it didn't, he told himself to be patient. When it did, he held on to the feeling, hoping it would last. This cycle repeated itself without resistance. Waiting, checking, easing, tightening. The practice continued, but the stillness within it became conditional. Peace was no longer simply experienced, it was anticipated. He did not feel frustrated. He did not feel dissatisfied. In fact, everything seemed reasonable. Yet beneath the surface, his attention had drifted away from what was happening and settled on what should be happening. The present moment was no longer enough on its own. It became a bridge always leading somewhere else. Without realizing it, hope had taken on weight. What once supported his effort, now quietly bounded, tying each moment to an outcome just beyond reach. And in that subtle attachment, ease began to thin. The disappointment did not arrive suddenly. There was no moment of failure, no clear reason to feel discouraged. He continued to practice, continued to wait, continued to hope. From the outside, nothing had changed, yet something felt thin. The moments of calm still appeared, but they passed quickly. When they did, a quiet sense of loss followed, not because the calm was gone, but because it had not stayed. Each time this happened, he returned to waiting, certain that patience would eventually be rewarded. But the waiting itself had grown heavy. He noticed that even when nothing was wrong, something felt unfinished, as if the present moment were always lacking, always on its way to becoming something else. He could not rest fully because rest now depended on what might come next. In one ordinary moment, this became clear. He saw that the disappointment was not caused by absence, but by expectation. Nothing had been taken from him. He had simply been holding something that had not arrived. The realization did not remove the hope, but it softened it. For the first time, he noticed how much effort it took to keep leaning forward and how little attention remained for what was already here. He began to notice how often he was waiting. Not waiting for something dramatic, but for small signs, a steadier calm, a clearer feeling, a sense that the effort was finally settling into place. Each time practice ended, he quietly checked whether anything had changed. When it felt lighter, he held on. When it didn't, he waited again. This pattern repeated itself without resistance. Calm was no longer something he simply experienced. It became something he looked for, and when it appeared even briefly, his attention shifted immediately toward keeping it. When it faded, disappointment followed, not strong enough to call frustration, but persistent enough to pull him forward once more. He saw that nothing was missing from the moment itself. The discomfort came from what he was adding to it. Each moment carried an expectation, and each expectation made the present feel incomplete. The more he waited, the less he could stay. This was the quiet cost of hope when it became attached to outcome. The practice continued, but ease was now conditional. Peace depended on arrival, and because arrival never stayed waiting, never ended. Seeing this did not remove his hope, but it changed his relationship to it. He stopped leaning forward quite so much. He noticed when checking appeared and when waiting returned. There was no sudden release, just a small shift. For a moment, he allowed the experience to be exactly as it was without asking it to become anything else. And in that moment, the disappointment had nothing to hold on to. Not because the answer had arrived, but because the waiting had paused. When waiting finally pauses, there is space to notice something unavoidable. Nothing stays, not the calm, not the disappointment, not even the moment itself. For a long time, his days followed the same rhythm. Each morning, he woke at the same hour, sat in the same place, and shared a quiet moment with someone who had become part of that routine. Nothing remarkable happened, nothing needed to. The familiarity itself felt reassuring. There were no promises spoken aloud, no plans made far ahead. Just the sense that this arrangement would continue as it had yesterday and the day before that. He did not think of it as permanent. He simply did not question it. Stability rarely announces itself. It settles in quietly through repetition until it feels natural to assume it will still be there tomorrow. And so, he moved through his days without urgency, believing that there was time. The changes did not arrive suddenly. They appeared in small ways easy to dismiss. The conversations became shorter, the pauses between words slightly longer. Some mornings, the familiar presence felt quieter, less anchored than before. He noticed these things, but only briefly. There was always a reasonable explanation. Fatigue, distraction, a passing phase that would correct itself with time. The routine remained intact, and that was enough to reassure him. They still met at the same hour. They still shared the same space. The structure had not broken, so he assumed the foundation was still there. Occasionally, a thought surfaced, a faint sense that something was shifting. But it never stayed long. There was no urgency, no clear signal that demanded attention. And so the thought passed, replaced by the comfort of familiarity. He did not ignore the changes out of carelessness. He ignored them because nothing had forced him to see them clearly. When life continues to move forward without interruption, it is easy to believe that what has always been there will remain. And so, without choosing to, he began to look past what was quietly changing. The change did not announce itself. One day, the familiar rhythm simply broke. The routine that had held everything together no longer continued in the same way. The person who had been there quietly and consistently was suddenly absent. There was no final conversation, no clear ending that made sense. Just a moment when what had always been present was no longer there. He tried to place the loss within reason, to trace it back to something specific, but nothing fit neatly. The absence felt larger than any explanation he could find. What unsettled him most was not the loss itself, but its timing. It had not happened during conflict or at a moment of distance. It had arrived in the middle of what felt stable, ordinary, unquestioned. He moved through the day as expected, speaking when necessary, completing what needed to be done. From the outside, everything appeared intact, yet inside something essential had shifted. Only then did he recognize the illusion he had been living within, the belief that stability meant continuity and that continuity meant time. The loss had not taken something away unexpectedly. It had simply revealed how quietly things had been changing all along. In the days that followed, his mind kept returning to small details. Moments he had barely noticed before now appeared with sharp clarity. The pauses he had dismissed, the silences he had explained away. Each memory carried the same quiet question. How long had this been changing? He replayed conversations, searching for signs he might have missed. Not to assign blame, but to understand how something so familiar could slip away without demanding attention. There was no outburst of grief, no collapse, just a hollow sense of absence that followed him through ordinary moments. The chair remained where it had always been. The place was unchanged, only the presence that once filled it was gone. What troubled him most was not that things had ended, but that he had lived as if they would not. He had assumed there would be more time, another moment, another chance to notice. Now time felt different. He moved through it, more slowly, aware of how easily familiarity had become assumption. The pain did not come from losing what was there. It came from realizing how much he had overlooked while believing it would remain. The pain did not come from what was lost. It came from the belief that it would remain. He saw this clearly as he looked back. Nothing had disappeared suddenly. The signs had been present, the quieter moments, the subtle distance, the changes that felt small enough to ignore. They had not been hidden. They had simply not been taken seriously. Stability had felt convincing because the structure remained. The routine continued. The days followed one another without interruption. And so he assumed that what filled those days would continue as well. This is how impermanence often works. It does not arrive as a dramatic ending. It unfolds gradually, quietly, beneath what feels familiar. By the time it becomes undeniable, it feels sudden. Not because it was unexpected, but because it was never fully seen. What unsettled him most was not the loss itself, but the realization that he had lived as if time were guaranteed. He had postponed attention, believing there would always be another moment to notice, another chance to be present. Impermanence is not cruel. It does not remove things to punish. It simply reveals what has been changing all along. The shock comes not from change, but from the assumption of continuity. Seeing this did not ease the absence, but it shifted something deeper. He understood that presence cannot be delayed. What matters cannot be scheduled for later. Nothing stays not because life is harsh, but because movement is its nature. When this is seen, attention changes. Moments are no longer passed through on the way to something else. They are met more directly while they are still here. Not to hold them, not to stop them, but to see them before they pass. When something is lost, the mind rarely stays with the loss itself. It looks for a place to put the pain, a reason, a person, a mistake. Faiz. After the loss, his days became quieter. He did not speak much about what had happened, but his mind kept returning to the same moment. The timing, the details, the small choices that in hindsight felt significant. Questions began to repeat themselves. Why then? Why that way? Each time they surfaced, they carried a faint sense of direction, as if the pain were looking for somewhere to land. At first, the questions felt useful. They gave shape to the confusion. They suggested that if something could be explained, it might also be eased. Sitting alone, he replayed the events again and again, believing that somewhere within them there had to be a reason that made sense of what he was feeling. At first, the blame had no clear direction. It did not settle on a person or a single decision. It hovered around circumstances, the timing, the sequence of events, the way things had unfolded. He told himself that if one small detail had been different, the outcome might have changed. These thoughts brought a brief sense of relief. They turned the pain into something structured, something that could be examined. If there was a cause, then the loss did not feel entirely random. He returned to the same moments, repeatedly adjusting them in his mind. What if he had spoken sooner? What if he had noticed more? What if the day had unfolded differently? Each question carried a quiet accusation, though not yet aimed at anyone. The blame remained diffuse, spread across circumstances and possibility. Still, something about this felt easier than sitting with the raw absence. Blame gave the pain a task. It allowed his mind to stay active, engaged, searching anything, but still. Without realizing it, he began to depend on these questions. They filled the silence left by the loss-offering movement where there was otherwise only weight. And in that movement, the pain found its first place to rest. Over time, the questions narrowed. What had once been directed at circumstances slowly found a shape. A conversation that could have gone differently. A person who might have acted sooner. A moment when something should have been said or done or prevented. The blame no longer drifted. It settled. Sometimes it pointed outward, toward someone who had been involved, even if only briefly. Other times it turned inward, replaying his own choices with growing intensity. The direction shifted, but the weight remained the same. Each time blame found a target, it brought a strange sense of focus. The pain felt sharper, but also more contained. It had somewhere to go, somewhere to stay. Yet with this focus came tension. His thoughts tightened around the same details, returning to them without resolution. The mind circled familiar ground, convinced that understanding why would eventually soften what had happened. Instead, the effort grew heavier. Nothing new emerged from the repetition. No clarity, no relief. Only the same scenes reviewed again and again, each time carrying the same quiet charge. Blame had promised explanation. What it delivered was endurance, the task of holding the pain in place day after day without allowing it to move. And slowly, Without announcing itself, the exhaustion began. Eventually, the repetition began to wear him down. The same questions returned, but they no longer felt purposeful. They arrived out of habit, not inquiry. Each time they surfaced, he felt the familiar tightening, followed by the same emptiness when nothing changed. He noticed that blame did not bring him closer to what had been lost. It kept his attention fixed on explanations that never completed themselves. The more he searched for a reason, the further he drifted from the actual pain underneath. Blame kept him busy. It filled the space with movement, with analysis, with imagined alternatives. But it also kept him from resting. There was no pause, no moment when the mind could simply stop circling. One evening, as the thoughts repeated once again, he felt a quiet fatigue settle in. Not emotional collapse, but a clear sense of depletion. The questions had not answered anything new. They had only prolonged the strain. In that moment, he saw the cost of holding blame. It did not protect him from pain. It only delayed meeting it. The loss was still there. The absence had not changed, but now alongside it there was exhaustion, the weight of carrying a story that could never resolve itself. And for the first time he wondered what might happen if he stopped asking why and allowed the pain to remain without direction. Blame often feels necessary. When something painful happens without explanation, the mind looks for a cause. It wants structure. It wants a reason that makes the loss feel less random, less out of control. In this way, blame offers direction when everything else feels scattered. But what blame truly does is give pain somewhere to stay. By attaching the hurt to a person, a moment, or a mistake, the mind avoids sitting with the rawness of what has been lost. The questions feel active, even responsible, yet they do not move the pain forward. They hold it in place. This is why blame becomes exhausting. It keeps the mind circling the same ground, replaying the same scenes, asking the same questions without resolution. The effort is constant and the return is always the same. The pain itself does not lessen through blame. It remains unchanged beneath the activity. What increases is the strain of carrying a story that never completes. The mind stays busy, but the heart does not rest. Seeing this does not mean blame disappears. It may return again and again, especially when the loss feels unfair or unfinished. But when the pattern is recognized, its grip begins to loosen. There is a moment, often quiet, when the effort of blaming becomes heavier than the pain it is trying to manage. In that moment, something shifts. The questions slow, the explanations lose urgency. What remains is not a relief, but honesty. The loss is still there. The absence is still felt. But without blame, the pain is no longer pushed in any direction. It is simply allowed to be present without a story attached to it. And in that presence, while nothing is resolved, the exhaustion begins to ease. Not because the pain is gone, but because the struggle against it has stopped. When blame no longer holds the pain, the mind looks for another way. Not to understand it, but to escape it. After a while, he stopped asking questions. He no longer replayed what had happened, and he no longer searched for reasons. Instead, he filled his days. There was always something to do, somewhere to go, some small task that needed attention. When the room grew quiet, he turned on a sound. When a pause appeared, he reached for movement. Silence felt uncomfortable. as if it invited something he was not ready to face. From the outside, he seemed fine, productive, composed, even steady. But whenever there was nothing to distract him, a familiar heaviness surfaced. Not strong enough to overwhelm him, just present enough to be noticed. And so he stayed busy, believing that as long as he kept moving, whatever waited beneath the surface would remain there. At first, the distractions felt intentional. He chose them carefully. Small tasks that required just enough focus. Activities that filled time without asking too much in return. As long as his attention stayed occupied, the heaviness remained manageable. But over time, the choice disappeared. He noticed how quickly he reacted to stillness. A pause was enough to trigger movement. A quiet moment was enough to reach for something else. He did this without thinking, as if his body already knew what to do. When a feeling began to rise, he shifted his focus. When the weight became noticeable, he adjusted his pace. Nothing dramatic, just a series of small turns away. The habit grew subtle and efficient. He did not tell himself he was avoiding anything. He simply stayed ahead of it. Yet the effort required constant maintenance. Each day needed to be filled. Each moment needed direction, without realizing it. Rest had become something to manage rather than something to enter. Avoidance no longer felt like a decision. It felt like balance, and as long as he kept moving, the surface stayed calm. But beneath that calm, something remained untouched, waiting for the moment when distraction would no longer be enough. The feelings did not wait for permission. They appeared at unexpected moments, slipping through the gaps he could not fill. Late at night when the day had finally slowed. Early in the morning before there was anything to reach for. Sometimes in the middle of something ordinary without warning. They did not arrive as clear thoughts. They showed up in the body. A tightness in the chest, a shallow breath, a sudden wave of fatigue that had no obvious cause. He tried to push through these moments the same way he always had. By staying active, by shifting focus, by telling himself it would pass. Sometimes it did. Other times it returned stronger, more insistent. The more he avoided stopping, the more unpredictable these moments became. They no longer followed a pattern he could manage. They interrupted him when he least expected it, when distraction was not immediately available. Nothing dramatic happened. He did not break down. He did not lose control, but the effort to stay ahead grew heavier. What once felt like balance now required constant adjustment. He began to notice how tired his body felt, even on days when nothing demanding had occurred. The exhaustion did not come from doing too much. It came from carrying something that had never been set down. At some point, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Each time he felt the heaviness, he moved away from it. And each time he moved away, it returned later unchanged, sometimes stronger. The cycle repeated itself with quiet precision. He saw how his days were arranged around avoidance. Silence was filled before it could settle. Stillness was interrupted before it could deepen. Even rest was structured to prevent feeling too much. The more he avoided stopping, the more effort it took to keep going. What once felt like control now felt like maintenance. Every moment required adjustment, anticipation, redirection. There was no clear moment of realization, just a steady fatigue that grew harder to explain. He noticed how little space there was to simply pause without preparing for what might surface. In one ordinary moment, he stopped trying to outrun it. Not because he was ready to face what he felt, but because he no longer had the energy to keep redirecting his attention. He did not turn toward the feeling. He simply did not turn away. And in that brief pause, he saw the loop clearly not as a failure, but as a habit that had been carrying him until it no longer could. The feelings had not grown larger. He had simply grown tired of running. Avoiding emotion is not a mistake. It begins as a way to cope. When feelings are too heavy, the mind looks for movement, noise, direction, anything that keeps the weight from settling. This response is not weakness, it is protection. For a time it works. Staying busy keeps the surface calm. Distraction creates distance. The body remains upright, functional, composed. From the outside, everything appears manageable. But what is avoided does not disappear. It waits. Each time the feeling is turned away from or returns later unchanged, not because it is demanding attention, but because it has not been met. The effort required is not in feeling the emotion itself, but in constantly redirecting attention away from it. This is where exhaustion forms. The mind becomes alert at all times, scanning for pauses, preparing to fill them. Rest turns into management. Stillness becomes something to control. Even silence feels unsafe, not because of what it contains, but because of what might appear. The fatigue that follows is often misunderstood. It is not caused by too much emotion. It comes from the continuous act of avoidance. Running takes energy, turning away takes effort. When the effort finally becomes heavier than the feeling itself, something shifts. Not clarity, not relief, just a pause. In that pause, there is no instruction to face anything. There is only the absence of movement. And in that absence, the emotion is no longer chased, but it is no longer pushed away either. This is not courage. It is honesty born of tiredness. The feeling does not need to be solved. It does not need to be understood. It only needs space to exist without being managed. Sometimes the moment we stop running is not the moment we are ready. It is simply the moment we cannot keep going. And that quietly is where something different becomes possible. When the running stops, what has been avoided does not disappear. It becomes visible, and often what appears first is fear. He sat without doing anything. There was no sound playing, no task waiting, no movement planned. The room was quiet, and for once he did not reach for something to fill it. At first, nothing happened. Then a subtle tension appeared. Not a thought, not a memory, just a tightening in the body as if something were about to occur. His breath felt shallow. His posture shifted slightly without intention. There was no clear reason for the unease. Nothing had gone wrong. And yet the sense of safety he usually relied on was absent. He noticed the impulse to adjust, to fix, to regain balance. But he stayed still. In that stillness, something he had long avoided began to show itself. The feeling did not point to anything specific. There was no image, no memory, no clear thought attached to it. Just a quiet alertness, as if something needed attention. But nothing could be identified. His body remained still. Yet inside, there was a sense of readiness awaiting without an object. He noticed how his awareness searched for a reason. It scanned for explanations, something to label, something to understand. But nothing appeared. The feeling stayed vague, present without form. This made it harder to manage. When fear has a shape, it can be addressed. When it has a cause, it can be planned around. But this was different. It did not respond to thinking. It did not resolve itself through explanation. The longer he remained still, the more obvious it became that the discomfort came from not knowing what to do next. There was no action required, yet the urge to act remained. He felt the impulse to move, to shift position, to break the stillness. Not because movement was needed, but because staying felt uncertain. In that moment, he understood something quietly. The unease was not warning him of danger. It was reacting to the absence of control. Almost immediately, he felt the need to do something. The discomfort was subtle, but it carried urgency. His body adjusted its posture without conscious thought. His breathing changed slightly, becoming more deliberate. These movements were small, nearly invisible, yet they were driven by the same intention to regain a sense of steadiness. He focused on controlling what he could. The rhythm of the breath, the position of his hands, the way his attention rested on a single point. Each adjustment brought a brief sense of relief, as if order had been restored. But the relief did not last. As soon as the effort relaxed, the unease returned, not stronger but unmistakably present. Again he corrected. Again he adjusted. The cycle repeated itself quietly. He noticed how quickly his attention narrowed. Everything became about maintaining balance, preventing the feeling from expanding. The stillness he had allowed moments before was replaced by subtle effort. Nothing outwardly dramatic was happening. He remained seated, composed. Yet inside there was constant activity, monitoring, correcting, holding. In trying to manage the feeling, he had not removed it. He had only shortened its absence, and gradually, he saw that the urge to control was not creating safety. It was responding to uncertainty, tightening around it, hoping that effort alone could make it disappear. After a while, the effort became noticeable, not dramatic, not overwhelming, just tiring. Each adjustment required attention. Each correction demanded presence. The body stayed still, but the mind worked continuously to keep everything in place. He realized that nothing he was doing actually removed the unease. It only delayed its return. Control created brief gaps, moments where the feeling receded. But those gaps required constant maintenance. The stillness he had first entered was gone. In its place was vigilance, a careful watching, a readiness to intervene at the slightest shift. What began as a way to feel safe had turned into another form of tension. Eventually, the effort softened, not because he decided to stop and not because he understood something new. It softened because maintaining control took more energy than he had left. His attention loosened. His breath returned to its natural rhythm. The posture corrected itself without guidance. The unease did not disappear, but something else did the struggle to manage it. For the first time since the feeling had appeared, he was no longer trying to make it go away. He was simply aware of it without adjustment, without resistance. The fear had not grown. It had only been revealed beneath the effort to contain it, and in the absence of control, it felt different. Not resolved, not comfortable, but no longer fought. The fear itself was not the problem. What made it difficult was the effort to control it. From the moment the unease appeared, attention turned toward management, adjusting the breath, correcting the posture, narrowing focus. Each action was meant to restore safety, yet each one quietly reinforced the belief that something was wrong. Fear does not always come from danger. Often it arises when there is nothing to hold on to. No clear next step, no instruction, no familiar pattern to rely on. In that uncertainty, the mind reaches for control, not to solve the fear, but to escape the discomfort of not knowing. This is why control feels urgent. It offers activity when stillness feels unsafe. It creates structure when experience feels open and uncontained. But control is effort, and effort cannot be sustained indefinitely. When the effort finally softened, the fear did not disappear. It remained present, but without the added weight of resistance. What changed was not the feeling itself, but the relationship to it. Without constant correction, the fear was no longer something to fix. It became something observed, not as an object to analyze, but as a sensation allowed to exist without interruption. This does not mean the fear lost its intensity. It means it stopped being fought. There is a difference between being afraid and struggling with fear. One is a natural response. The other is a continuous tightening around it. When the struggle ends, what remains is often simpler than expected. A sensation, a vulnerability, a moment of uncertainty. Fear does not ask to be removed. It asks to be seen without interference. When this happens, the body no longer braces, the mind no longer scans for escape. There is no safety gained, but there is less tension lost. And in that reduction of effort, fear begins to change, not because it has been solved, but because it is no longer being held in place by control. Sometimes the most stable moment is not when fear is gone, but when nothing is being done to make it go away. When fear is no longer pushed away, the mind begins to ask, not to solve, but to understand. After the fear settled, something else emerged. It was not a thought he chose and not a problem demanding attention. Just a quiet question appearing without urgency. What now? Not spoken aloud, not repeated, simply present. He did not rush to answer it. At first, he only noticed that it was there. The question did not carry panic. It did not press for action. It hovered gently as if waiting to see what would happen next. There was a familiar impulse to respond, to explain, to decide. But this time he paused. Nothing required resolution in that moment. The question remained unchanged, and for once it did not disturb the stillness. The question did not remain alone. Soon, another followed, then another. None of them were urgent yet. Together they formed a familiar pattern. His mind moved naturally toward asking, as it always had. Each question felt reasonable. Is this enough? Am I doing this correctly? Should I be doing more? They appeared quietly, without tension, but they carried direction. They pointed attention forward toward what might come next. He noticed how quickly the mind reached for questions when there was no clear instruction. Asking created orientation. It gave the moment a sense of movement, even when nothing needed to change. This habit did not feel like doubt. It felt like care, like responsibility, like staying engaged with what was happening. Yet as the questions multiplied, the stillness beneath them thinned. Attention no longer rested where it was. It hovered slightly ahead, preparing for an answer. He did not resist the questions. He did not try to stop them. He simply observed how easily they appeared, filling the open space left when nothing demanded his attention. In that observation, he began to sense that the questions were not seeking information. They were seeking reassurance. At some point, he began to respond to the questions, not all at once and not with urgency. A thought here, a conclusion there. Each answer felt sufficient, at least for a moment. The mind relaxed slightly, reassured that something had been decided. But the relief did not last. Soon after, an answer formed, another question appeared beside it. Sometimes it challenged the answer, sometimes it refined it. Other times it simply replaced it with something new. The movement was subtle but continuous. He noticed how easily the mind shifted from one explanation to the next. Each answer created a sense of progress, yet none of them allowed attention to fully rest. There was always something left unresolved, something still open. The questions did not feel anxious, they felt thoughtful, considerate. But their effect was the same. Attention stayed active, oriented toward understanding rather than presence. He realized that answering had become another form of movement, a way to stay engaged without stopping. The mind was no longer reacting to fear, but it was still avoiding stillness. Nothing was wrong with the answers themselves. They were often sensible, sometimes even helpful, but they did not bring closure. Each one passed, making room for the next. And in that steady flow of questioning and responding, he saw that the mind was not searching for truth. It was searching for comfort. At some point, he stopped answering. Not because the questions disappeared, and not because he found a better explanation. He simply noticed how little difference the answers made. They passed through the mind one after another without leaving anything settled behind. The questions still appeared, but now they were quieter. When one arose, he did not immediately turn toward it. He did not push it away either. He allowed it to remain unanswered, resting in the background of awareness. At first, this felt uncomfortable. Without a response, there was no sense of progress. No direction, just the open space the question usually filled. But as he stayed with that openness, something softened. The question no longer demanded resolution. It became lighter, less insistent. Sometimes it faded on its own. Other times it remained, but without pulling attention forward. He saw that nothing was lost by not answering. The moment did not collapse. The experience did not fall apart. Life continued even without a conclusion. For the first time, he sensed that the question itself was not the problem. The urgency to answer it was, and when that urgency eased, the mind found a different kind of rest, not in knowing, but in allowing what was unknown to remain exactly as it was. Questions often feel intelligent. They suggest curiosity, care, and engagement. When something is unclear, the mind naturally asks. It looks for direction, for reassurance, for a way to move forward without feeling lost. But not every question is meant to be answered. Some questions arise, not from the need to know, but from the discomfort of not knowing. They appear when certainty is absent, when the mind feels exposed, and when there is no clear structure to rely on. In those moments, questioning becomes a way to steady oneself. This is why answers bring relief. Briefly, they give shape to uncertainty. They offer the sense that something has been resolved. Yet, when the relief fades, another question follows, repeating the cycle. The problem is not the question itself, it is the urgency attached to it. When a question is treated as something that must be solved, attention cannot rest. The present moment becomes incomplete, waiting for confirmation. Each answer postpones stillness rather than allowing it. By letting the question remain unanswered, something subtle changes. The mind discovers that uncertainty is not dangerous. The moment does not collapse without explanation. Experience continues even without clarity. This does not mean questions disappear. They may still arise quietly and often, but when they are no longer forced toward resolution, they lose their grip. They no longer pull attention forward. There is a difference between not knowing and needing to know. One is openness, the other is tension. When the need to know softens, the question returns to its natural place, not as a problem, but as a passing movement of thought. It can come and go without shaping the entire moment around itself. In that space, understanding no longer has to arrive first. Presence is no longer postponed. Sometimes the deepest rest comes not from finding the right answer, but from discovering that none is required. When a question no longer needs an answer, the mind stops reaching ahead, and without reaching it begins to let go. For the first time in a long while, he was not trying to figure out what came next. There was no question forming, no plan taking shape, no quiet urgency pushing him forward. The familiar habit of orienting himself had eased, leaving behind an open, unmarked space. It did not feel peaceful. It did not feel unsettling. It simply felt undefined. He noticed the absence of direction more than anything else. There was nothing to lean toward and nothing to move away from. The moment did not suggest a next step, and so he remained where he was not because he had decided to stay, but because there was no reason to go. In that neutrality, something unfamiliar appeared, not clarity, but the absence of needing it. Even without questions, the habit remained. He noticed how often his attention waited for a signal, a feeling that said now, a sense that pointed forward. When none appeared, there was a faint pull, an almost automatic urge to create direction where none was needed. This habit was subtle. It did not announce itself as impatience or doubt. It felt practical, responsible, as if staying oriented were simply part of being attentive. He saw how quickly the mind reached for reference points, a thought about progress, a comparison with where he had been before, a quiet expectation that something should shift. None of these thoughts demanded action. They hovered lightly, suggesting movement without insisting on it. Yet their presence revealed something familiar, the discomfort of not knowing where one was headed. He had lived most of his life this way, guided by markers, goals, understandings. Direction had always provided reassurance. It made experience feel purposeful, contained. Now without it, nothing was wrong, but nothing was anchored either. And in that unanchored space, he saw how deeply the need for direction had been woven into his attention, not as desire, but as habit. As the moments passed, a quiet unease began to surface. It was not fear and not restlessness. Nothing in particular felt wrong. Yet without direction, there was a sense of standing without support, as if something familiar had been removed. He noticed how the body responded first. A slight tightening, a subtle shift in posture, the impulse to move, not toward anything specific, but simply away from stillness. The mind followed closely behind. It suggested small anchors, a thought about what might come next, a reminder of where he had been before. These were not plans. They were gestures toward movement, attempts to restore a sense of flow. Remaining without direction felt exposed. There was no progress to measure, no reference point to lean on. Time seemed less structured, less useful. The moment did not offer feedback, and that absence created discomfort. He saw how easily direction had masked this feeling in the past. As long as there was somewhere to go, the unease stayed hidden. Now, with nothing to move toward, it became visible. Still, he did not choose a direction, not out of resolve and not as a practice. He simply noticed the discomfort and allowed it to remain. There was no urgency to correct it and no reason to escape. In staying where he was, the unease did not grow. It revealed itself, then held. And in that holding, it began to change. He remained where he was without selecting a direction. There was no decision made and no principle guiding him. He simply did not follow the impulse to move. The suggestions arose, quiet nudges toward doing something, becoming something, heading somewhere, and he let them pass. At first, this felt passive, as if he were neglecting something important, but nothing demanded attention. Nothing fell apart. The moment continued unmarked and ordinary. He noticed how the absence of choice changed his attention. Without a direction to follow, there was no future to prepare for. Awareness softened and no longer stretched forward or pulled back. The discomfort he had felt earlier did not disappear, but it lost its edge. Without resistance or correction, it no longer needed to announce itself. It settled into the background, becoming just another sensation among many. He did not arrive anywhere new. There was no clarity, gained no insight formed. What changed was simpler. The effort to position himself within the moment eased. For the first time, he was not trying to place his experience within a larger movement. He was not measuring progress or waiting for confirmation. He was simply present without reference, and in that absence of choosing the moment revealed something quietly unfamiliar, a steadiness that did not depend on direction. Not because he had found the right place to stand, but because he had stopped trying to stand somewhere else. The discomfort he felt was not caused by stillness. It came from the habit of needing direction. For most of his life, orientation had provided stability. Knowing where he was going gave each moment a place to belong. Direction created meaning, continuity, and reassurance. Without it, experience felt exposed, unfinished. This is why the absence of direction can feel unsettling, not because something is missing, but because a familiar structure is no longer there to organize attention. The mind is used to leaning forward, measuring progress, and locating itself within movement. When that movement stops, the mind briefly feels unheld. What he discovered was that this unease did not require correction. It was not a signal to choose a path or define a goal. It was simply the sensation of not being guided by habit. By not choosing, he did not lose anything. The moment continued without instruction. Breath happened. Awareness remained. Nothing collapsed in the absence of direction. This revealed something subtle. Direction is often mistaken for stability, but stability can exist without it. When attention is no longer pulled toward what comes next, it has space to settle where it already is. Not because it has arrived somewhere meaningful, but because it is no longer being stretched. Letting go of direction does not mean giving up. It means pausing the effort to place oneself within a story of progress. It allows experience to stand on its own without needing to be part of a larger arc. In this pause, there is no clarity gained and no purpose defined, but there is less strain. The mind is no longer trying to be ahead of itself, and in that absence of effort, something quiet becomes possible. Not a sense of arrival, but a sense of being held without needing to go anywhere. Sometimes the deepest rest comes not from finding the right direction, but from discovering that for this moment, none is required. When there is no direction to follow, nothing needs to be reached. What remains is simply where this moment is already standing. He was not trying to settle his mind. There was no effort to focus, no intention to stay calm. He simply stood where he was noticing what was already happening. The sound in the distance, the weight of his body, the steady rhythm of breathing, moving on its own. Nothing needed attention, more than anything else. Each sensation appeared, stayed briefly, then changed. He did not follow them, and he did not push them away. For once, there was no task within the moment. He did not feel especially peaceful. He did not feel distracted. He was simply present without checking whether he was doing it correctly. And in that simplicity, the moment unfolded on its own, complete without effort and without needing to become anything else. He noticed how everything continued without his involvement. Sounds arose and faded on their own. Sensations shifted gently without asking for attention. The breath moved in a steady rhythm, uncorrected, uninterrupted. Nothing required guidance. At times, the mind leaned forward, ready to comment or adjust. A subtle thought suggested focusing more clearly, staying longer, making the moment steadier. He saw these impulses appear and just as easily pass. There was no need to manage what was happening. When a sensation grew stronger, it changed. When it weakened, it moved away. The moment did not improve or decline. It simply unfolded complete in each small movement. He realized that effort had never been necessary for this. Experience did not depend on attention to exist. It did not wait to be noticed in order to continue. Without interference, there was a quiet balance. Not a fixed calm and not a special state. Just the absence of resistance. He did not feel separate from what was happening. There was no distance to close, no position to take. The moment required nothing from him. And in that simplicity, he saw something clearly. Presence was not something to enter. It was what remained when nothing was being done to leave. Without warning, effort returned. Not as tension and not as strain. It appeared as a gentle intention, the wish to stay with the moment a little longer, to make the experience steadier, clearer, more complete. The thought was almost invisible. This feels right. Stay here. It carried no urgency, only care. Yet within it was a subtle shift. Attention tightened, leaning slightly forward. He noticed how quickly presence could become a task. The moment that had been unfolding freely was now being observed with expectation. Sensations were checked. Stillness was measured. The ease he had felt moments before thinned, replaced by a quiet monitoring. Nothing had gone wrong. The experience had not collapsed. But something had changed. He saw that even the desire to remain present was another form of interference. A gentle one, but still an effort. The moment no longer stood on its own. It was being held. Recognizing this, he did not correct himself. He did not step back or try to relax. He simply noticed the shift and allowed it. As soon as the noticing was complete, the effort loosened. Presence returned not because it was reclaimed, but because the attempt to maintain it had passed. Once the effort loosened, the moment continued without instruction. Nothing needed to be sustained. Sensations came and went freely. Sounds appeared, lingered, then faded. The breath moved as it always had, unmeasured and uncorrected. There was no attempt to stay, no need to follow what arose. Experience flowed without a center directing it. Time passed, though it was no longer tracked. The mind did not ask how long this had lasted, or whether it should last longer. There was no reference point to return to, and no position to maintain. Occasionally, attention shifted. A thought appeared. A sensation became more prominent. Each change happened on its own without disturbing the whole. He did not feel anchored in a special state. He did not feel separate from what was occurring. There was simply participation without involvement. Nothing needed to be protected. In allowing experience to move as it wished, there was an ease that did not depend on control. The moment did not require permission to unfold, and it did not ask for effort to remain. What had once been called presence was no longer an experience to hold. It was the absence of holding, and in that absence, everything continued quietly, naturally, without resistance. Presence does not come from effort. It appears when effort is no longer applied to experience. When nothing is being adjusted, improved, or held in place, what remains is simply what is already happening. Most of the strain we associate with being present comes from interference. The wish to focus, to stay, to maintain a certain quality of attention, subtly pulls experience out of balance. Even gentle effort introduces tension. This is why presence often feels unstable when we try to achieve it. The moment becomes something to manage. Attention narrows. Monitoring replaces openness. What was revealed in this experience was not a special state, but the absence of struggle. When experience is allowed to move on its own, it does not require supervision. Sensations arise and fade naturally. Thoughts come and go without needing to be followed. The body breathes without instruction. Nothing is gained by this, nothing is lost. The simplicity of presence lies in its ordinariness. It does not announce itself as clarity or calm. It does not demand recognition. It is often overlooked because it does not stand out. Presence is not a destination reached through practice. It is what is noticed when the habit of leaving the moment is no longer active. This does not mean effort will not return. It often does. The mind is accustomed to involvement to shaping experience, but each time effort is seen without being reinforced, it loosens on its own. What remains is not control but ease. Not because the moment is perfect, but because nothing is being done to make it otherwise. In that ease, experience continues exactly as it is, incomplete, ordinary, and sufficient, and for once that is enough. When nothing needs to be done and nothing needs to be held, what becomes noticeable is not another experience, but the space in which everything appears. Nothing new appeared. There was no shift in posture, no change in breath, no special feeling to mark the moment. Thoughts continued to arise as they always had. Sounds came and went. Sensations moved quietly through the body. And yet beneath all of this, something steady was noticed. Not something added, and not something created. It had been there the entire time. Present between one thought and the next, behind every sound unchanged by what passed through it. He realized that this background had never left. It had simply gone unnoticed, covered by attention that was always moving outward. Now, without trying to focus or adjust, he became aware of that underlying stillness, not as a state to enter, but as the space in which everything was already happening. As he stayed with the moment, he noticed how everything continued to move. Thoughts appeared, formed briefly, then dissolved. Sounds rose from different directions, overlapped and faded. Sensations shifted in small, ordinary ways. None of this had stopped. What caught his attention was not the movement, but what remained consistent beneath it. No matter what appeared, there was something that did not react. It did not follow thoughts as they came. It did not tighten around sounds or sensations. It stayed the same whether the moment felt busy or quiet. This background was not something he focused on. It did not stand out or demand attention. It simply held everything without changing. He realized that it had been present even during the busiest moments of his life. When the mind raced, it was there. When emotions surged, it was there. When nothing seemed stable, it remained untouched. The difference now was not that it had arrived, but that he was no longer overlooking it. Without trying to stay with it, and without trying to name it, he allowed experience to unfold as it always had, while noticing that beneath every change, something steady had never moved at all. He began to see why this had gone unnoticed for so long. Attention had always been trained to move, to follow thoughts, react to sounds, respond to feelings. The mind learned early that what mattered most was what changed, what needed fixing, deciding, or understanding. Anything that did not move was easily ignored. This background did not announce itself. It did not create contrast. It did not ask to be noticed. While attention rushed toward problems, plans, and sensations, it remained quietly available, without competing for focus. Even moments of calm in the past had been filled with effort, trying to relax, trying to feel better, trying to make the mind quiet. Each attempt kept attention busy, turned outward, or pointed toward a result. In that constant engagement, there was little space to notice what was already stable. He saw now that nothing had been missing. The background had not been hidden. It had simply never been the object of attention. It did not fit the habit of searching, so it was passed over. This realization did not bring surprise or excitement. It felt ordinary, almost obvious. The mind had not failed to find something new. It had simply stopped overlooking what had never left. He did not try to remain with what he had noticed. There was no effort to stay close to it, no concern about losing it. Thoughts continued to appear. Sounds continued to pass through. At times, attention drifted toward them, just as it always had. Nothing was interrupted. What changed was subtle. Even when attention moved, the background did not disappear. It did not require focus to remain present. It was there whether he noticed it or not. He saw that trying to hold it would have turned it into something else. An object, a state, something to maintain. And in doing so, the simplicity would have been lost. So he did nothing. He allowed attention to move naturally without correcting it. When thoughts became prominent, they were simply thoughts. When sensations stood out, they were just sensations. None of them disturbed what lay beneath. There was no sense of staying with or falling away. Those ideas no longer applied. The background did not belong to attention. It did not depend on awareness being directed toward it. In not holding it, he understood something quietly important. What is truly steady does not need protection. What does not come and go cannot be kept or lost. And in seeing this, there was nothing more to do, only the continuation of what had always been happening now without being overlooked. What he recognized was not a new experience. It was the absence of something that had always been added effort, movement, and the habit of searching. The background, he noticed, had never required attention. It had simply been overshadowed by what was more active, more demanding, more familiar. This is why silence is often misunderstood. It is commonly thought of as something that appears when noise stops, when thoughts fade, or when the mind becomes calm. But what was seen here suggested something different. Silence was not the result of controlling experience. It was the space in which experience had always been taking place. Thoughts did not interrupt it. Sounds did not disturb it. Even attention moving away did not remove it. The background remained unchanged, not because it was protected, but because it was never involved. The effort to find silence is what usually hides it. When attention is constantly directed outward toward problems, improvements, and understanding, the stable background is passed over. Not because it is inaccessible, but because it does not ask to be noticed. This realization did not bring excitement or relief, it brought simplicity. There was no longer a need to quiet the mind, stop thinking, or maintain awareness. Those efforts belonged to the belief that something needed to change, but nothing here required change. The background did not become clearer with focus, and it did not disappear with distraction. It was not an experience to deepen and not a state to preserve. It was simply what remained when nothing was being done to experience. Silence in this sense was not fragile. It did not depend on conditions. It did not compete with life. It was the quiet continuity beneath every sound, the openness behind every thought, and the steadiness that had never been lost. Nothing needed to be added to it. Nothing needed to be taken away. And in seeing this, the search naturally came to rest, not because it had reached an answer, but because it had recognized what had always been there. When this quiet background is seen, nothing needs to be improved. Nothing needs to be added. The need to become something else begins to fade. For as long as he could remember, there had been an assumption beneath everything. That who he was as he was not quite enough. It was not a harsh judgment and not a voice of self-criticism. It appeared more gently disguised as intention, a belief that things would settle once he became calmer, more understanding, more complete. There was always a future version in mind, a version that reacted less worried, less needed less. And quietly, without question, the present version was treated as temporary. He did not hate himself. He was simply waiting to become someone else. Only now, standing without effort or direction, did he begin to notice how constant that waiting had been and how much of his attention had always been placed just ahead of where he already was. The urge to improve himself was rarely obvious. It did not arrive as pressure or dissatisfaction. It showed up quietly, woven into ordinary moments. When he reacted emotionally, there was the thought that he should be calmer next time. When confusion appeared, there was the idea that understanding more would fix it. Nothing about this felt harsh. It felt responsible. Thoughtful, as if he were taking care of himself by aiming to become better. He noticed how often his attention moved forward toward a version of himself that did not yet exist. A version that would respond more skillfully, remain steadier, feel more at ease. The present moment became a stepping stone, never quite a place to rest. Even moments of peace carried a condition. They were seen as signs of progress, evidence that change was working. And when those moments passed, the focus returned to what still needed improvement. He was not rejecting who he was postponing being at ease with it. The habit was so familiar that it rarely felt like striving. It felt like care. Only now did he begin to see how constant this movement toward better had been, and how rarely he had allowed himself to arrive exactly where he already was. Each small improvement brought a sense of relief. When he reacted, less worried, less or felt clearer, there was a brief feeling that things were moving in the right direction. The mind relaxed, reassured that the effort was working. But the relief never lasted. Soon after, another edge appeared. A new area that could be smoother, calmer, more balanced. The direction shifted, but the movement remained the same, always toward a version of himself that was slightly ahead. He noticed how easily satisfaction turned into another expectation. What had once felt like progress became the new baseline. The mind adjusted quickly, setting a higher standard without announcing it. There was no final version waiting to be reached. No matter how much changed, the sense of almost remained. Almost calm enough, almost understanding enough, almost ready to rest. He was not failing to improve. He was succeeding and still not arriving. This was not because improvement was wrong. It was because improvement was being used as a condition for peace. As long as ease depended on becoming something else, the present moment could never be complete. It was always measured against what it had not yet become. And so the effort continued, quietly and endlessly, without a place to stop. As this became clear, something softened. He noticed that the pressure to adjust himself had not disappeared, because he had improved enough. It eased because the belief beneath it began to loosen. The belief that peace depended on becoming someone else. Nothing about him had suddenly changed. His reactions still appeared. His thoughts still moved as they always had. But the urgency to correct them was no longer present. He saw that the quiet background he had noticed earlier did not ask for refinement. It was steady whether he felt calm or unsettled, clear or confused. It did not wait for a better version of him to appear. For the first time, he did not relate to himself as a project. There was no sense of giving up and no feeling of settling for less. What faded was the assumption that something essential was missing and needed to be fixed. Without that assumption, effort lost its momentum. Change was no longer a requirement for ease. Improvement was no longer a condition for rest. The moment did not need to be justified by progress. He did not conclude that growth was unnecessary. He simply stopped using growth as a way to postpone being at ease. And in that shift, the present moment quietly took its place. Not as a stepping stone to something better, but as something already sufficient to stand on. The need to change did not come from dissatisfaction alone. It came from an assumption learned early and reinforced quietly over time that peace belongs to a future version of oneself. That who we are now is a stage to pass through, not a place to stay. This belief is subtle. It does not always sound like self-criticism. Often it appears as care, as effort, as the intention to grow, to understand more, to become steadier. Yet beneath that intention lies a condition: not yet. As long as ease is tied to becoming something else, the present moment remains incomplete. Improvement may bring temporary relief, but it cannot bring an end.
Each change only moves the finish line further ahead. What was seen here was not the failure of self-improvement, but its limitation. Growth can refine behavior, expand understanding, and reduce friction. But it cannot deliver the sense of being allowed to rest.
That permission does not come from change. It comes from seeing that the quiet background noticed earlier does not improve or decline with personal development. It does not become more stable when one is calmer, nor less available when one struggles. It remains unchanged, regardless of how the individual moment appears. When this is recognized, the pressure to fix oneself begins to dissolve, not because growth is rejected, but because it is no longer used as a requirement for peace. There is a profound difference between changing because something is wrong and changing because nothing is missing. In the first case, effort is driven by lack. In the second, effort becomes optional.
This does not end learning, reflection, or adaptation. It ends the belief that one must arrive somewhere else in order to be at ease. When that belief loosens, the present moment is no longer a problem to solve. It becomes a place that can be inhabited fully, imperfectly, and without condition. And in that inhabiting, the need to become someone else quietly fades, not through effort, but through understanding. When there is no need to become someone else, the habit of measuring oneself against others begins to lose its meaning. He was no longer trying to improve himself. There was no quiet plan to become better, no future version he was waiting to reach. And yet in an ordinary moment, something familiar surfaced. He noticed someone else. The way they spoke, the calm they seemed to carry, the ease with which they appeared to understand what was being said. A small thought formed almost unnoticed. They seemed more settled. It did not carry jealousy or frustration. It was neutral matter of fact. Still, a comparison had been made. He saw how quickly the mind placed things side by side, measuring without intention. Not to compete and not to judge harshly, just to locate itself in relation to another. The moment remained calm. Nothing felt wrong, and yet a subtle distance had appeared, quietly separating what was once simply shared experience into me and them. The comparison did not feel deliberate. He did not decide to measure himself against anyone. The mind simply noticed differences and arranged them side by side. One person appeared calmer, another seemed more certain. The observations arose quietly, without emotional charge. This had always happened. Even when there was no desire to be better, the mind still reached for reference. It compared tone, posture, understanding. Not to compete, but to orient itself to know where it stood. He saw how automatic this was. The comparison appeared before any judgment followed, before any story about success or failure formed. It was simply the mind doing what it had learned to do. Nothing in this felt personal. It was not fueled by insecurity or ambition. It was closer to habit than intention. Yet even in its neutrality, the effect was clear. The moment subtly shifted. Attention moved away from direct experience and toward evaluation. The shared space became divided into positions. He realized that comparison did not require dissatisfaction to exist.
It did not need conflict or desire. It could arise even in calm, even when nothing needed to change. It was a background movement, quiet, familiar, and rarely questioned. And in noticing this, he did not try to stop it. He simply saw it as it was a reflex, not a decision. The moment comparison appeared, something shifted. Nothing dramatic changed on the surface. The conversation continued. The atmosphere remained calm, yet internally the sense of shared experience thinned. Where there had been simple listening, there was now positioning, a subtle awareness of where he stood in relation to another. Not above, not below, just separate. He noticed how this separation did not come with tension or conflict. It felt almost polite, quiet, but it altered the quality of connection. Attention was no longer fully with what was happening. Part of it had stepped back to observe and evaluate. The other person became an image rather than a presence. Their calm was noted. Their understanding was assessed. What had been a living exchange turned slightly conceptual. This distance did not feel painful. It felt normal, and that was what made it difficult to notice. Comparison did not announce itself as a problem. It did not disturb peace directly. It simply introduced a thin layer of separation between experience and participation. He saw that even when comparison was neutral, it carried an assumption that experience needed to be located, measured, placed somewhere on an internal scale. In doing so, the immediacy of the moment was softened. Nothing had gone wrong, but something intimate had quietly stepped back. As he stayed with this noticing, something became clearer. What he was comparing was not another person as they were. It was an image formed in his own mind. A collection of impressions, posture, tone, a few words, a brief expression, assembled into a story. He did not know what the other person was experiencing. He could not see their doubts, their effort, or their private uncertainty. None of that was available. The comparison was built on what was visible, filtered through assumption. He saw how quickly the mind filled in gaps. Calm became being settled. Confidence became having clarity. A momentary ease became a stable state. These conclusions felt reasonable, but they were incomplete. The comparison was not inaccurate because it was wrong. It was inaccurate because it was partial. In that moment, he noticed something else. The image he formed of himself was also incomplete, reduced to a position on a scale, stripped of context, depth, and movement. Two images were being compared, not two realities. Seeing this did not erase the habit of comparison, but it softened its authority. The conclusions drawn from it no longer felt solid. The distance created earlier began to loosen, not because he forced closeness, but because the basis for separation was seen as fragile. What remained was the recognition that comparison did not reveal truth. It only revealed how the mind tried to make sense of what it could not fully know. Comparison does not begin with judgment. It begins with the need to locate oneself, to understand where one stands in relation to others.
This habit is learned early and reinforced constantly through observation, feedback, and the quiet pressure to know one's place. Even when the desire to become better has faded, comparison can remain. Not as competition, but as orientation, a way the mind tries to make sense of social space. The difficulty is not in noticing differences. Differences are real. The difficulty lies in what comparison relies on. Comparison is built on images.
It uses fragments of information, appearances, words, brief impressions, and turns them into conclusions. From these partial views, the mind constructs a story about others and a story about oneself, and then places those stories side by side. What gets lost is reality. The lived experience of another person is never fully visible. Their inner movement, their uncertainty, their effort. None of this is accessible, yet comparison treats the visible as complete. It assumes enough is known to measure. This is why comparison creates distance, even when it is neutral. It replaces direct presence with interpretation. It turns shared experience into positioning. Seeing this does not require rejecting comparison. It does not demand that the habit disappear. It only requires recognizing what comparison can and cannot provide. Comparison can organize information. It cannot reveal truth. When this is understood, comparison loses its authority. Its conclusions no longer feel final. The images it produces are seen as approximations, not facts. As a result, the sense of separation it creates begins to soften. Not because closeness is forced, but because the basis for distance is no longer believed. Connection returns not through effort, but through the absence of measurement. When there is no need to know where one stands, there is room to simply stand where one is. And in that simplicity, comparison no longer dominates attention. It may still arise, but it no longer defines the moment. What remains is a quieter relationship with others, not based on position, but on presence. When comparison fades, judgment becomes easier to notice. Not only toward others, but quietly toward oneself. It did not arrive as a harsh thought. There was no criticism spoken clearly, no strong opinion formed. What appeared was quieter than that, a subtle sense that something was slightly off. Not wrong enough to react to, just not quite right. He noticed it in himself. The way attention leaned toward evaluating. The way moments were silently labeled as good or lacking, clear or confused, settled or unfinished. Nothing dramatic followed. The judgment did not demand action. It did not turn into blame. It simply hovered in the background, shaping how experience was being received. He saw that this had been happening for a long time. Not loudly and not intentionally. Just a constant, almost invisible filtering of what was occurring. And only now, in this quieter space, did it become noticeable, not as a problem to fix, but as a habit that had always been there, quietly, deciding what was acceptable and what was not. The judgment did not come with strong emotion. It did not announce itself as right or wrong. It appeared more like a quiet sorting. This feels settled, that feels unfinished. This moment works, that one could be better. He noticed how automatically this happened. Experience arose, and almost immediately it was measured. Not aggressively, and not consciously. The mind simply placed a subtle mark on it. This habit had formed long ago. Judgment helped make sense of things. It organized experience, pointed out what needed attention, and guided behavior. In many ways, it had been useful, necessary even. But now, as he watched it more closely, he saw how constant it was. There was rarely a moment when experience arrived without being filtered. Even calm was assessed, even clarity was checked. The judgment did not always lead to action. Often, it stayed quiet, shaping perception without drawing notice. It colored the moment, gently leaning attention toward improvement or correction. He realized that judgment was not something he did.
It was something that happened, and because it had always been present, it had rarely been questioned. Seeing this did not create resistance. He did not try to silence the habit or replace it with acceptance. He simply allowed judgment to appear as it always had. Now visible, no longer hidden within the flow of experience. As he noticed judgment in the world around him, he began to see it within himself. Moments, thoughts, and actions were quietly measured. Did he respond well? Was he calm enough? Did he understand fully or fall short in some small way? The same subtle filtering that evaluated others now reflected inward. He realized how automatic this was. The habit of assessment had never required conscious intention. It operated silently, shaping attention, directing awareness, and coloring experience before he even recognized it. This inward judgment did not feel heavy or harsh. There was no guilt, no self-criticism screaming for attention. It was softer, almost imperceptible, like a gentle leaning of the mind toward improvement, comparison, or correction. Even when nothing demanded change, judgment was present. It influenced perception, creating a quiet standard against which every thought and feeling was measured. He saw how familiar it was, a quiet companion throughout life. Sometimes helpful, sometimes unnoticed, but always there. It had guided action, shaped behavior, and provided orientation. Yet it had also subtly created distance from the moment itself, turning direct experience into evaluation. Seeing this inward habit did not provoke resistance. It was simply visible, an old pattern recognized without judgment about its presence. Its influence was acknowledged yet left undisturbed, and in that acknowledgement he began to sense that judgment was not always the enemy. It was a process that had existed long before he became aware of it, quietly shaping perception and understanding in ways he had never questioned. He did not try to stop it. The inward judgment continued to arise quietly, assessing thoughts, actions, and moments, and yet he remained still, allowing it to be present without turning it into a task or a problem. He noticed the subtle pull of the mind to respond, to correct, to improve, to align with some imagined standard. But he did not act. He did not step in, adjust, or interfere. He simply watched. The judgment flowed like a current beneath experience, guiding attention, coloring perception, but not demanding intervention. It highlighted moments that seemed good and moments that seemed less than yet. He neither clung to the good nor pushed away the less. For the first time, he observed the pattern without reacting. He recognized its presence, its history, and its habitual nature, but he did not make it part of a story. It remained a process, not a verdict. This observation did not feel like control, nor did it feel like passivity. It was the quiet acknowledgement of what already existed, a recognition that judgment, inward or outward, is often automatic, subtle, and unavoidable. And in simply noticing, without acting, he found that judgment could exist without shaping his attention entirely. The mind could still move naturally, experience could continue, and he could remain present without interference. Judgment is a habit as old as thought itself. It does not always arrive as criticism or anger. Often it is subtle, quiet, almost invisible. It sorts experience, labels moments, and evaluates self and others without conscious choice. Even when the mind is calm, judgment continues. It leans toward correction, improvement, or measurement. It places events and people on scales, creating distance where there need be none.
Sometimes it is useful guiding action or helping make sense of a situation. Other times it is unnecessary coloring perception without reason. What he noticed now was how automatic it had always been. Judgment did not require intention. It flowed silently, shaping attention and interpretation before any awareness arrived. Outward or inward, it was a pattern, not a choice. Recognizing judgment does not demand that it disappear. It does not call for action or correction. Simply seeing it, acknowledging that it is a process, a habitual filter changes the relationship to it. It no longer dictates attention as it once did. Judgment toward others creates distance. Judgment toward oneself creates pressure. Both arise from the same mechanism, the mind's need to locate, assess, and measure, but neither is reality. Both are images interpreted through habit. When this is understood, its authority loosens. Its conclusions no longer feel final. The mind can move freely while judgment is present. Attention can rest in experience without needing to respond to every subtle evaluation. The lesson is not to eliminate judgment, nor to resist it. The lesson is to see it clearly and allow it to exist, without giving it power over perception. In this recognition, he found that judgment could coexist with presence, subtly influencing attention, but no longer defining the moment. And in that quiet acknowledgement, there was space for experience to unfold, for awareness to settle, and for the mind to observe without interference. 5. When judgment is seen for what it is, attention can shift, not only toward others, but also toward oneself and the quiet connections between them. He noticed himself noticing how attention drifted toward others, toward their gestures, expressions, and words, and simultaneously noticing his own presence, the subtle shifts in thought, the quiet movements of feeling, and the way he appeared in relation to them. It was not a comparison. It was not evaluation. It was simply observation, the gentle awareness of self alongside the awareness of another. He became aware of the space that existed between him and the other person, the subtle threads connecting attention, perception, and feeling. A presence was felt not as something to manage, but as a pattern quietly unfolding. And in that noticing, the distinction between self and other felt soft, not erased, but lightly traced as if drawn with a gentle hand. As he continued to notice, he became aware of the subtle threads that linked himself to the other. A glance, a gesture, a tone each carried more than itself. Attention moved gently along these threads, tracing the interaction without pushing or pulling. There was no story to enforce, no judgment to impose. Just a quiet pattern present and unfolding. He realized how much of his previous attention had been caught in reactions, thoughts about right and wrong, better or worse, safe or unsettled. Now attention rested lightly, aware of both self and other simultaneously. Nothing had to change. Nothing had to be corrected. Each movement, internal or external, was noted without interference. The connections were not dramatic. They were simple, almost imperceptible. A pause in breathing, a slight tilt of the head, the timing of words. Yet they carried meaning, not meanings to interpret or evaluate, but signals of ongoing interaction, constantly shifting and adapting. He did not control the threads. He did not try to strengthen them. He merely allowed them to be seen. And in that seeing, the moment felt whole, not because of effort, but because attention had softened. Observation became a gentle presence, neither anchored to self,
nor absorbed entirely in the other. Both were noticed, neither dominating, both part of a delicate, ongoing pattern. He began to notice the subtle movements in himself and in the other person that had gone largely unseen before. A breath, slightly longer or shorter, a tilt of the head, a shift in posture, the rhythm of words as they emerged. Each movement was fleeting, but together they created a delicate flow. Attention traced these currents without judgment. It did not categorize them as right or wrong, effective or ineffective. It simply observed. The patterns emerged intertwined and constantly shifting like threads in a quiet fabric connecting one moment to the next. He saw how often he had missed these movements in the past, distracted by what he thought needed correcting, understanding, or improving. Now there was no need to intervene, no need to interpret, no need to guide. Even when thoughts arose, attention returned lightly, following the subtle rhythms of interaction. He noticed how internal shifts, a fleeting feeling, a subtle impulse mirrored external gestures. The movements within and around reflected each other continuously, naturally, without effort. The sense of self and other was present, distinct yet connected. The boundaries softened, not erased, revealing the continuity of awareness flowing between them. Observation became participation without controlled presence, without possession, and in simply noticing without acting, the space between them held itself quietly, naturally, without demand or expectation. He did not try to shape the interaction. The subtle threads he had noticed continued weaving patterns between himself and the other. Breaths, gestures, and pauses moved freely. Words arose and passed without effort. He simply observed the flow, letting it be exactly as it was. Sometimes attention drifted toward thoughts or feelings, small impulses to correct or align. Each time he returned lightly, without forcing focus, without judgment. The movements continued unaffected by his observation. There was no need to guide, no expectation to achieve, no pressure to maintain connection. The flow of awareness between self and other carried itself. Each moment unfolded naturally, and he remained present without interference. He noticed how easily interaction could have been colored by expectation, habit, or desire. But when left untouched, it revealed its own rhythm. There was balance, subtle yet complete, neither forced nor controlled. Self and other existed together, distinct yet intertwined. The space between them was alive, not structured, not evaluated, simply present, moving, adapting on its own. And in that quiet witnessing, he realized that interaction does not need effort to occur. It flows on its own, and attention can rest alongside it, free to notice without needing to act. Interaction does not need direction. He had observed subtle connections, threads linking himself and another weaving together. Gestures, breaths, words, and attention. The patterns were continuous, fluid, and unforced. What had once seemed dependent on effort or expectation was now revealed as self-sustaining. Judgment and comparison, which often shape perception, were present but softened. They no longer dictated the flow of attention. Observation alone allowed the interaction to unfold naturally without intervention. The mind could notice without needing to control. This revealed a subtle truth. The quality of connection does not depend on the self-imposing order. It emerges from presence, from noticing, not from doing. The delicate balance between self and other is maintained not by effort, but by allowing patterns to be seen and acknowledged.
Attempts to manage, correct, or align are habitual. They arise from the belief that connection requires guidance. In truth, attention can rest alongside experience while it unfolds. Connection does not demand perfection, action, or interpretation. It simply exists, moving as it will, continuously adapting. By witnessing without interference, he discovered that interaction can be whole, even without striving. Presence is enough to hold the threads together. Effort does not create the balance, recognition does. The lesson is not to control the relationship or the flow of awareness. It is to notice how naturally interaction operates when the mind stops imposing. When judgment is softened and comparison fades, the flow of connection becomes visible. It carries itself. It holds itself. In this understanding, he realized that the subtle dance between self and other, delicate, ongoing, and unforced, is accessible in every moment if attention simply observes without interference. When the flow between self and other is seen, there is no need to intervene. The threads hold themselves and attention can release. He simply let things be. No effort to correct, improve, or guide. No subtle urge to hold the flow of experience. Thoughts, sensations, and interactions arose and passed unnoticed, yet observed. Sounds came and went. Breaths moved in their own rhythm, and the body rested in its natural position. There was nothing to achieve, nothing to adjust, nothing to control. Even the mind's impulses, small nudges to act, to fix, to manage, were allowed to surface and dissolve without interference. He did not resist them, nor did he follow them. In that openness, he noticed how things could continue perfectly, without effort, without oversight, without intention. Everything unfolded on its own, and he was present simply to see it. He watched as the flow continued naturally and freely. Breaths moved in and out. Thoughts appeared and disappeared. Sounds came and went. Movements of the body, gestures in interaction, even subtle shifts in feeling, all unfolded without instruction. Nothing required guidance, and nothing was constrained by expectation. Occasionally, the mind nudged him toward action. Small impulses to adjust, to respond, to fix, arose and passed without consequence. He neither followed them nor resisted them. They were simply part of the unfolding, noticed and allowed. He saw how rarely he had ever experienced this before. Usually, attention pushed or pulled. Usually, he tried to manage what appeared. Now he was only present, observing a process that carried itself. Even subtle judgments or comparisons appeared and faded without dominating attention. The flow was uninterrupted. It did not rely on his effort. It did not require his control. Everything, internal and external, moved in its own rhythm, sustained by its own presence. In this observation, he understood. Presence does not depend on action. Effort is optional, and yet the flow remains whole, complete and alive. He noticed how effortless it was. Nothing required correction or improvement. No part of experience demanded attention. No thought demanded action. The mind, free from the subtle pressures of comparison, judgment, or expectation, rested alongside the unfolding flow. He felt how easily the body and mind could settle when intervention was paused. Breaths moved naturally. Sensations shifted without resistance. Thoughts came and went like clouds passing across the sky, noticed but not followed. Even impulses to act, to adjust, to control, softened and faded when left alone. The flow did not falter. It did not weaken. It did not collapse in the absence of effort. In fact, its continuity seemed stronger, steadier,
more resilient. The need to manage or guide was revealed as optional, unnecessary. He realized that all this, the rhythm of experience, the movements within, the interactions around, had been sustaining themselves all along. Effort had been habitual, not essential. The subtle weight of striving could now be lifted, replaced by simple noticing, simple presence. And in this noticing, a lightness emerged. Not an accomplishment, not a state to reach, just the quiet recognition that the flow could carry on entirely on its own, and he was free to witness it entirely as it was. He did not try to hold anything in place. Breaths, sensations, sounds, and thoughts continued their natural rhythm. Even subtle impulses to act, to adjust, or to guide were allowed to appear and fade without interference. He simply witnessed what was happening, letting each moment unfold as it wished. The flow of experience was whole on its own. Nothing depended on his attention, his control, or his effort. Each sensation, each movement, each pause carried itself, complete and continuous. There was no need to correct, no need to maintain, no need to direct. Even judgments, comparisons, or impulses arose and dissolved without influence. They were part of the moment, but they did not define it. The space between thoughts and sensations, between himself and the world, held itself naturally. He noticed the lightness of simply observing. Presence did not require doing. Attention could rest alongside experience without manipulating it. The moment was complete as it was sustained by its own unfolding. And in that quiet witnessing, he felt the subtle freedom that comes when effort ceases, when control is released, and when the present is allowed to carry itself effortlessly and naturally entirely on its own. Effort is optional. He observed how each moment unfolded, how thoughts, sensations, and interactions moved naturally without requiring his direction. The flow continued complete in itself. The rhythm of experience, the subtle currents within and around him, carried on unaffected by whether he intervened or not. He realized that much of what had once seemed necessary, correcting, guiding, managing, had been habitual. Effort was embedded in attention, not in reality. Presence does not arise from doing. It arises from noticing without interference. Judgment, comparison, and the impulses to act still appeared. But they no longer dictated the rhythm. The space between thoughts and sensations, between self and other, held itself. The unfolding did not need validation, shaping, or approval. It simply existed, sustained by its own nature. This revealed a subtle but profound truth. Freedom does not come from control, and completeness does not come from effort. When intervention ceases, when striving relaxes, the present moment carries itself. Awareness does not need to do anything, it only needs to see. The lesson is not about stopping action. It is about seeing when action is unnecessary, when attention rests without interference. The natural flow of experience is revealed. It sustains itself precise and whole, whether noticed or not. In letting go, he found that the present is enough, fully alive in every detail. Effort may appear again, but it is no longer required for presence. The moment holds itself. Awareness rests freely, and for the first time he witnessed the effortless continuity that has always been here. Not something to achieve, but something to allow. 505s. And now, as these stories on the long night gently come to a close, you can let go of any lingering thoughts, any subtle tensions, and simply rest. There is nowhere to go, nothing to do, nothing to
fix. Everything you have experienced tonight can settle quietly, as it naturally will. Let your breath move freely. Let your body soften into the surface beneath you. Let your mind drift without effort, carrying nothing and needing nothing. May the calm of the long night accompany you, letting you drift into a deep, peaceful sleep. May your dreams be gentle and your rest complete. And as you sleep, know that you can always return here to the quiet, to the presence that has always been within you, waiting without demand. Good night. Each breath arose naturally without direction, carrying the body along in its gentle movement. He saw how easily the mind could drift, yet each time it returned, it traced the breath without forcing it. The rise of the chest, the fall, the quiet pause between all, happened on their own, unshaped and precise. Outside, the wind rustled leaves. The soft hum of distant sounds blended seamlessly with the internal rhythm. The alignment of body and environment created a subtle harmony, unnoticed when attention had been elsewhere. He realized that effort had never been needed to sustain this flow. It had been happening all along, silently and perfectly. Attempting to control or improve only added tension, while observing allowed it to unfold freely. With each gentle exhale, he sensed the ease of presence. There was no goal, no achievement, no need for intervention. The breath, like life itself, continued naturally, steady, continuous, and complete in its own way. As he continued, he became aware of the subtle movements within his body. Each inhale lifted his chest, expanded his ribs, and brought a slight extension through the spine. Each exhale released tension, softening the shoulders and letting the torso settle naturally. The small shifts in posture, the faint changes in muscle tone, were all part of the rhythm he had been following. He noticed how connected the breath was to these movements. When attention rested on the rise and fall of his chest, the rest of the body responded automatically. There was no need to adjust, to correct, or to guide. Every shift, internal or external, occurred effortlessly. The breeze outside stirred the leaves, and the soft sounds of the afternoon blended with the subtle internal rhythm. He saw how the body and environment moved together in an unspoken dialogue, each influencing the other in small, natural ways. Occasionally, the mind wandered, nudged by thought or impulse. Each time he returned gently to the breath, to the sensation of the body moving with it. He did not force alignment, did not push for perfection. The body carried itself, and he observed soft and present. In this gentle noticing, he realized that the rhythm of breath and body was always enough. No effort was required. No intervention was needed. Presence alone allowed the subtle currents of life to flow naturally. He did not try to control anything. The rise and fall of his chest, the gentle expansion of his ribs, the subtle sway of his spine, all continued naturally without interference. Each inhale and exhale carried the body along, and each movement unfolded on its own. Occasionally, thoughts or impulses to adjust appeared. Each time he noticed them and returned softly to the breath, to the subtle flow of sensation. He neither followed them nor resisted. They were part of the unfolding, appearing and passing as they would. The body's movements and the rhythm of breath were interconnected, a quiet dialogue that required no direction. Awareness simply rested alongside, observing, without attempting to influence the natural flow. He realized that the subtle currents of body and breath were self-sustaining. No effort, no attention, no intervention was needed to keep them moving. Each moment carried itself complete and sufficient in its own rhythm, and in this simple noticing, he felt the ease of letting go. The flow required nothing from him, yet he was fully present to witness it soft, calm, and at rest. He noticed how effortlessly the body and breath moved together without need for intervention. Each inhale and exhale, each subtle shift in posture was sustained naturally, independent of thought or effort. This revealed a simple truth: presence does not require doing. The rhythm of breath, the movements of the body, and the flow of sensation carry themselves perfectly when left undisturbed. Effort had been habitual, embedded in attention, but it was not essential. Observing without interference revealed the fullness of experience. Even when small impulses to adjust arose, they did not dictate the rhythm. They came and went, noticed yet untouched, part of the natural unfolding. Judgment and expectation softened, no longer coloring perception. He understood that freedom lies not in controlling or perfecting, but in noticing. The body and breath have always carried themselves fully complete, precise, and sufficient. Awareness does not need to manipulate the flow to be present. Presence alone allows the subtle currents of life to continue effortlessly. This is the lesson of the breath. It moves naturally always, and in its continuity there is nothing missing. The body is already aligned, the rhythm already whole. Effort may appear, but it is optional. The mind can rest freely, and the present moment sustains itself. In simply noticing without intervening, he discovered the gentle ease that comes from allowing, from letting the body, the breath, and attention move together. Presence does not demand action, and yet the fullness of experience is revealed completely naturally and quietly. As breath and body flow naturally, attention can drift gently inward. Subtle thoughts begin to appear, rising and falling like clouds, and the mind quietly follows without grasping or resistance. He walked slowly through the forest, feeling the soft earth beneath his feet. Thoughts drifted into awareness like clouds across a pale sky. Some were fleeting, light, and almost transparent. Others lingered for a moment, forming subtle patterns, then dissolving. He did not chase them. He did not push them away. Each thought arose naturally and passed away, carrying itself, neither demanding attention nor resisting it. He noticed how the mind, often so busy, could simply observe. The thoughts moved, the body moved, and he remained present, tracing the flow without interference, lightly, softly, as if following a river that flowed of its own accord. He noticed each thought appearing quietly, without demand or drama. A memory surfaced, lingering for a moment, then gently faded. A worry hovered, subtle and light, before dissolving back into the flow. An idea flickered, passing without leaving a trace. None of them required action or attention. They moved naturally, like clouds drifting across the sky. He observed how easily the mind could wander, yet always returned to the rhythm of noticing. There was no need to push thoughts away or follow them. Each arose, carried itself, and passed complete in its own time. Occasionally, a thought seemed to linger longer, tempting attention, inviting analysis. But he returned softly to simple observation, letting it pass without resistance. The act of noticing without grasping allowed the mind to rest, even as activity continued. He realized that thought is never still, yet it can be observed without tension.
Presence does not require control, and the mind does not need to intervene to experience its own movement fully. Each moment of thinking was a river flowing naturally, carrying him along without effort. As he continued walking, he began to see subtle patterns in his thoughts. Some thoughts recurred gently, like familiar melodies. A worry about something in the future, a memory from the past, a fleeting idea. They appeared again and again in quiet rhythm. He noticed how certain types of thought always arose in familiar situations, almost automatically, like the wind brushing against leaves in a predictable pattern. He did not try to stop them. He did not analyze them or push them away. Each thought moved along its path, naturally carrying itself and passing when it was ready. By simply noticing, he saw the structure without needing to change it. Even when thoughts seemed to return in cycles, there was no tension. The mind could observe repetition without frustration or effort. Each pattern was transient, self-contained, and complete, requiring nothing from him except gentle awareness. He realized that recognizing these patterns did not mean controlling them. Observation alone allowed the rhythm to reveal itself. Thoughts could rise, linger, and dissolve, and he could remain present, soft and steady, following their flow without interference. In this subtle noticing, he felt a lightness, the freedom that comes from seeing the mind operate on its own without needing to manage or judge, simply witnessing what is already happening. He did not try to hold any thought in place. Each idea, worry, memory, or plan appeared and dissolved naturally. A fleeting thought of something to do tomorrow arose, then passed. A memory of a long-past conversation drifted by, dissolving without force. Occasionally, a small curiosity surfaced, only to fade as easily as it came. He noticed how gently the mind allowed these currents to move when left unshaped. No effort was needed to manage them. No attention was required to keep them from drifting. Observing was enough. The patterns of thought, some repeating, some fleeting, flowed on their own, like a quiet river moving past rocks and bends without resistance. He did not need to step in, correct, or control. Each moment of thinking existed, fully complete in itself, and passed when it was ready. In simply noticing without grasping or pushing, he felt the subtle ease of freedom. Thoughts could rise, linger, and fade, and he could remain fully present alongside them. Presence did not depend on controlling or understanding. It only required gentle attention. And in this gentle witnessing, he discovered how effortlessly the mind could move when observation was soft, unforced, and entirely patient. He saw that thoughts move like clouds across the sky, appearing lingering briefly and passing on their own. They did not require control, intervention, or judgment. Effort had been habitual, embedded in attention, but it was not essential. Observing without interference revealed the natural flow of the mind. Patterns emerged without his doing. Memories, worries, plans, and fleeting ideas appeared and dissolved, repeating in gentle rhythms. Recognition of these patterns did not demand action. He could witness them without becoming involved, without chasing or resisting. Judgment and expectation softened. Comparison lost its subtle authority. By simply noticing, attention could rest alongside thoughts rather than being carried away by them. Awareness did not need to manage the mind to experience clarity and ease. He realized that freedom lies not in stopping or controlling thought, but in observing it move naturally.
The mind's currents were complete in themselves. He did not need to guide them, fix them, or hold them in place. Each thought arose, existed fully and passed, and he could remain present throughout soft calm and undisturbed. This gentle witnessing allowed a lightness to emerge. The mind could operate freely and presence remained whole. Observation alone was enough to reveal the rhythm and flow of thought. In noticing without interference, he discovered that the mind, like breath or body, can carry itself. Effort is optional, presence is complete. And in this simple recognition, there was a subtle freedom, a quiet ease that had always been available patiently, moving silently, naturally on its own. As thoughts move freely, awareness can expand outward. The subtle sounds around him begin to appear, leaves rustling, distant footsteps. The whisper of wind and attention follows lightly without needing to grasp or judge. He sat quietly on the edge of the beach, feeling the cool sand beneath him. Sounds arrived softly, the gentle lap of waves, a distant gull, calling the faint rustle of leaves in the wind. Each sound emerged and faded, carrying itself without demand or expectation. He did not try to focus, nor did he filter what was pleasant or distracting. Each tone, each whisper of movement was allowed to be exactly as it was. In listening this way, he noticed the fullness of the present. The mind could rest alongside the sounds, moving freely with them, neither chasing nor resisting. Each subtle note revealed the rhythm of the world, flowing effortlessly and complete in its own pattern. He allowed his attention to drift across the sounds around him. The waves moved in a steady rhythm, the gull's call echoed briefly and faded, and the wind stirred the leaves with a soft, unpredictable pattern. Each sound existed on its own, arising and dissolving without demand. He did not label them, filter them, or hold on to them. He only noticed them as they were. Sometimes a louder wave or the snap of a branch caught his ear. He simply observed the difference, feeling the contrast without interpreting it or reacting. The sounds carried their own rhythm, and he could follow it without interference. He realized how rarely attention had been allowed to move freely this way. Normally, he would have judged, compared, or tried to control what he heard. Now each subtle tone unfolded naturally, complete in itself, and he remained present alongside it. Even the quietest whispers, the briefest echoes were sufficient. No effort was needed. No expectation was required. The entire soundscape flowed whole and uninterrupted, and he was free to witness it, soft and attentive, without grasping or resisting. As he listened more closely, he began to notice the subtle layers within the soundscape. The waves carried multiple tones, from the deep thrum of the tide to the delicate hiss at the edges. The wind rustled leaves in 1,000 variations, each movement distinct, yet blending seamlessly into the whole. Even the distant calls of birds held nuance, rising and fading in gentle waves. He did not separate or label these layers. He simply allowed attention to rest lightly on each one, noticing the interaction between them. Some sounds overlapped, creating small harmonies. Others appeared briefly and vanished, leaving space for the next. He realized how easily the mind could normally miss these details, caught in thought or judgment. Now, without interference, every element revealed itself naturally in its own rhythm. He did not need to follow, analyze, or control. The layers existed fully and harmoniously, and he could simply witness them.
Even the quietest shifts were enough. Even the briefest sounds carried their presence. He felt the subtle ease of being alongside the flow, attentive but unbound, immersed, yet untouched. In this gentle noticing, he discovered that listening could be complete without effort, and that the world itself sustains its own harmony, perfectly whole, without interference. He did not try to hold any sound in place. The waves continued their gentle rhythm, the wind stirred the leaves in subtle shifting patterns, and distant birds' calls rose and fell naturally. Each tone appeared lingered and faded without his intervention. He did not push it away, nor did he attempt to grasp it. He simply observed, soft and present, allowing the flow to carry itself. Even sudden or unexpected sounds, a louder crash of a wave, a snapping branch, were received without tension or reaction. They arose, moved, and passed in their own rhythm, complete and sufficient without requiring adjustment or attention. He realized that the soundscape was whole on its own. Effort was optional. Control was unnecessary. The mind could rest alongside the flow, attentive yet unbound, present without interference. In simply noticing without shaping or labeling, he felt the subtle ease of freedom. The sounds moved naturally, and he was free to witness them fully. Awareness could remain soft, steady, and complete alongside the flow, without needing to do anything at all. He realized that the world moves continuously, complete in itself, whether attention rests upon it or not. The waves, the wind, the distant calls of birds, each unfolds in its own rhythm, carrying itself without need for interference. Listening does not require effort. It only requires presence. Patterns within the sounds emerge naturally. Some repeat, some appear briefly, and some overlap, forming subtle harmonies. By simply noticing without judging or intervening, he observed the interplay of these layers, recognizing the fullness of the moment. No sound needed to be grasped, corrected, or held in place. Even the quietest, most fleeting sounds carried their own completeness. The mind could rest alongside them, neither chasing nor avoiding, neither labeling nor comparing. In doing so, he discovered that awareness and the world's flow coexist effortlessly, without effort or control. The lesson became clear: freedom is not in managing or shaping what is heard, but in allowing it to be exactly as it is. Presence itself is enough to sustain understanding, clarity, and ease. Sounds do not need validation. They simply move, and attention can move with them, soft, steady, and undisturbed. He understood that this gentle witnessing, noticing, without grasping, creates a subtle freedom. The mind can remain present, while the world carries on complete and whole. Each sound, like each moment of life, is sufficient on its own, requiring nothing but quiet attention. In this recognition, he felt ease settling deeply, the natural rhythm of the environment mirrored within, and the mind resting softly alongside it, free, calm, and fully present. As the sounds continue their natural rhythm, attention can shift inward to the subtle sensations of the body. The soft rise and fall of muscles, the gentle pressure of points of contact, and the quiet movement within. He lay quietly on the grass, feeling the gentle support beneath him. Subtle sensations arose: the touch of fabric against skin, the pressure of his body against the earth, the tiniest shifts in weight as muscles relaxed and adjusted. Each sensation moved naturally, unnoticed, until attention arrived. He did not try to control or alter them. He simply observed the rising and falling of tension, the small expansions and contractions within his body, and the soft currents of awareness moving through him. In this quiet noticing, he felt the body's natural rhythm. No effort was required. Nothing needed adjustment. Each movement, each subtle change was complete in itself, and he rested fully with it. Present and aware, soft and undisturbed. He became aware of the subtle movements within his body. Muscles shifted lightly, joints aligned themselves, and small adjustments occurred without conscious effort. The pressure of his weight on the ground eased and redistributed naturally. Each part of the body responded to another, creating a gentle, self-sustaining balance. He noticed how easily the body managed these shifts. No direction was needed. No thought guided the movements. Awareness simply rested on the sensations, observing without interference. The torso expanded and contracted with each breath. Shoulders softened and the spine adapted in tiny, precise ways, all without control. Outside, the soft wind stirred the grass, blending with the internal rhythm of the body. He saw how body and environment moved in subtle harmony, each adjusting to the other naturally. He realized that the sense of balance and ease he felt did not come from effort or focus. It had always been present. Observing without interfering allowed the body to move fully and freely, revealing its effortless wisdom. In this gentle noticing, he felt calm, soft and connected, fully present in the subtle dance of his own sensations. He shifted his attention inward, noticing the subtle currents flowing through his body. A warmth moved softly along his arms, a tingling along his spine, and gentle waves of sensation rose and fell in his chest and abdomen. Each pulse, each shift occurred naturally, guided by the body itself without conscious effort or intention. He observed how these currents intertwined with the breath, how an inhale slightly expanded the torso, and an exhale allowed the muscles to soften. Even the smallest sensations, the flutter of a fingertip, the touch of fabric on skin, carried their own rhythm, blending seamlessly with the whole. He did not attempt to control or amplify the sensations. He did not label them as pleasant or neutral. Instead, he rested with them, following their natural rise and fall, allowing them to carry themselves as they had always done. Occasionally, thoughts or impulses arose, nudging attention outward or toward action. Each time he returned softly to the currents within, noticing without clinging, without interference. The body's self-regulating wisdom became apparent, a subtle, complete and effortless harmony unfolding beneath awareness. In this gentle noticing, he felt the ease of presence. The currents of sensation moved freely, uninterrupted by control, and he could rest fully alongside them, soft, aware, and entirely at ease. He did not try to guide or control any movement. The subtle currents of sensation continued to flow naturally. Muscles shifting, joints aligning, breaths rising and falling, all happening without his direction. Each adjustment carried itself complete and sufficient, requiring nothing from him. Occasionally, a small impulse to move or correct arose, but he simply noticed it and let it pass, returning gently to the natural rhythm of the body. There was no tension, no expectation, no need to hold anything in place. Each sensation unfolded in its own time, precise and whole, and he rested alongside it. He felt the harmony within a quiet, self-sustaining balance. The body's movements, from the tiniest shift in posture to the rise and fall of the chest,
were complete without effort. Awareness alone was enough to witness this flow. In this soft noticing, he experienced ease, lightness, and presence. The body carried itself perfectly. The currents moved freely, and he could simply rest, attentive, yet unbound, immersed without interference. He noticed how the body carries itself naturally, without need for intervention. Every subtle shift in muscles, every alignment of joints, every rise and fall of the chest was sustained effortlessly. The body's wisdom is embedded in its own movement, precise and complete, requiring nothing from thought or effort. Even when impulses arose to adjust, guide, or correct, they were unnecessary. Observing without interference revealed the natural harmony that had always existed. Awareness alone was enough to witness the flow, soft, attentive, and fully present. Patterns of sensation, subtle currents, and micro-adjustments arose and faded continuously. By simply noticing them, he could rest alongside the body without trying to control it. The harmony and rhythm of life within him sustained themselves complete and uninterrupted. He understood that freedom does not come from effort, control, or correction. It comes from observing, from allowing the body to move as it naturally does. Presence alone suffices. Intervention is optional. In witnessing this, he felt a quiet ease, a soft lightness, and a deep sense of completion. This gentle noticing allowed the mind to rest while the body continued its own flow. Every movement was full, perfect, and sufficient, and he could remain present alongside it. Effort may appear, but it is unnecessary. Awareness alone holds the moment, and in that soft, uninterrupted attention there is freedom, calm, and the effortless continuity of life itself. As the body flows effortlessly, attention can expand outward. Subtle rhythms emerge, the rise and fall of breath, the movement of limbs, the gentle patterns of the world around, all carrying themselves naturally and inviting quiet presence alongside. He walked slowly through the quiet street, noticing the subtle rhythm of life around him. Each step had its own cadence. The sway of branches, the distant hum of traffic, the soft footsteps of others all moved in gentle patterns, rising and falling in harmony. Inside him, breath and heartbeat followed their own natural tempo, flowing with the external world. He did not try to align himself or control any movement. He simply observed, tracing the rhythm as it emerged, soft and steady, noticing how the currents within and around him intertwined seamlessly. In this quiet noticing, he felt the sense of life moving on its own, complete and sufficient, and he rested lightly alongside it, attentive, calm, and free. He allowed his attention to drift gently across the rhythms he noticed. The sway of branches in the wind, the cadence of footsteps on the pavement, the ebb and flow of passing conversations. Each moved at its own pace, arising and fading naturally. Inside his breath and heartbeat flowed in harmony with these external patterns, subtle currents guiding one another without effort. He did not try to control, synchronize, or interpret any rhythm. He simply observed, letting awareness rest lightly on each pulse, each movement, each rise and fall. The world and his body moved together quietly, steadily, in a self-sustaining balance. Even when the mind nudged him toward thought or judgment, he returned softly to the rhythms, noticing without grasping. Patterns emerged, disappeared, and overlapped, revealing the gentle harmony of life's ongoing flow. In this soft observing,
he realized that the subtle currents of breath, body, and environment require no intervention. Awareness alone allows them to unfold naturally, complete and whole, while presence rests freely alongside them. He shifted attention inward and outward, sensing how the rhythms intertwined. The gentle rise and fall of his chest echoed the sway of leaves above. The soft pulse of his heartbeat matched the cadence of distant footsteps, the hum of life around him. Even the smallest sensations within a subtle stretch of muscle, a slight shift of weight, resonated with external movement, forming a delicate harmony. He did not try to control or align these currents. Awareness simply rested on them, noticing how they influenced one another naturally. Internal and external rhythms were distinct, yet connected, moving in a continuous dialogue that required no intervention. Occasionally, thoughts drifted in, tempting him to analyze or compare. Each time he returned softly to the flow, observing without grasping, allowing the subtle currents to maintain their own pattern. He realized that the dance between inner and outer rhythms is complete without effort. The body, breath, and environment sustain themselves, and presence simply observes, soft, steady, and attentive. Each moment is whole, each rhythm sufficient, each interaction unfolding exactly as it should. In this gentle noticing, he felt the deep ease of being alongside life itself, neither imposing nor resisting, simply present with its ongoing, effortless flow. He did not try to direct anything. The rhythms within his body, the rise and fall of breath, the gentle pulse of heartbeat, the subtle adjustments of muscles continued effortlessly. Outside, leaves swayed, footsteps passed, and distant sounds appeared and faded naturally. Everything flowed on its own, complete and sufficient. Even when attention drifted toward thought or impulse, he returned softly to the flow. He did not control it, judge it, or attempt to hold it. The currents moved independently, yet in harmony, forming a seamless, ongoing rhythm. He realized that the dance of inner and outer rhythms does not require effort to continue. Presence alone is enough. Awareness can rest alongside the flow, attentive yet unbound, soft and steady without interference. In this gentle noticing, he felt the freedom of simply being. The rhythms carried themselves whole and uninterrupted, and he could remain present alongside them, fully aware, calm and at ease. The flow required nothing from him, and yet by noticing he was part of it, moving lightly, quietly, in alignment with the natural currents of life. He noticed how every rhythm within his body, within breath, within the environment carried itself naturally. Each pulse, each subtle movement, each sound existed complete and sufficient, independent of effort or intervention. Even the currents of thought that occasionally arose did not disrupt the flow. They appeared, lingered, and passed, moving naturally alongside the steady, ongoing rhythm of life. Observing without interference allowed attention to rest lightly, soft and present, aligned with the patterns around and within him. He realized that freedom and ease do not come from controlling these rhythms, from forcing alignment, or from judging their quality. The flow is self-sustaining. Awareness simply accompanies it, noticing without grasping, resting alongside it without effort. The interplay between internal and external rhythms revealed a delicate harmony, subtle, continuous, and perfect in its own right. The rise and fall of breath, the shifting weight of the body, the sway of leaves, the cadence of footsteps, the distant hum of life all moved together effortlessly.
There was nothing to fix, nothing to manage, nothing to direct. By allowing the whole flow to carry itself, he felt a deep lightness. Presence did not require action, and yet the entirety of life's movement was revealed. Each rhythm was complete, every pattern sufficient, and he could rest fully within it, attentive, calm, and free. In this soft witnessing, he discovered the quiet, natural continuity of existence, a gentle freedom available in every moment when observation is soft, unforced, and entirely present. And now, as these stories on the long night gently come to a close, you can let go of any lingering thoughts, any subtle tensions, and simply rest. There is nowhere to go, nothing to do, nothing to fix. Everything you have experienced tonight can settle quietly as it naturally will. Let your breath move freely. Let your body soften into the surface beneath you. Let your mind drift without effort, carrying nothing and needing nothing. May the calm of the long night accompany you, letting you drift into a deep, peaceful sleep. May your dreams be gentle and your rest complete. And as you sleep, know that you can always return here to the quiet, to the presence that has always been within you, waiting without demand. Good night.